That's right. And today we are going to talk about another type of method, which is an action method. Okay. So okay, fine. So we'll go back to the example that we were doing in the last session, and we are going to do that with a slightly different approach. Give me a moment. Let me log in into Salesforce first. Yep, here we are. All right. So we'll go back to the page that we created in the last session. This is the page we created. Yep, this is the page that we created in the last session, and we are now gonna change the code. Output is going to be similar, but instead of using two different tables, we will have just one page block table component, and the value in the table is going to change. Okay, so I'm going to create a couple of buttons on the page. When I click on the button, the value inside the table should change. Okay, so that way you don't need multiple markups. You just need one markup, and the data in that markup is going to change every time I click on the button. Okay, so that's what we're going to do. Okay, so to do this, what we're going to do is we will have a getter method. Obviously, getter method is going to be required because I want to display the data on the visual force page, so I need a getter method, and I need action methods. Two action methods will be required. I'm going to create two buttons, and one action method for each button will be required. So when I click on the button, the action method will be called, and in that action method we are basically going to update the value of the list. So that's what we're going to do. So let's go ahead and create the class for this. Setup, develop Apex classes. Okay. So I'll call it C4. I need to display list of accounts, so let me just define a variable for that. Okay. This time I just need one variable, I don't need two variables. Okay, and I need a getter method to display this list of accounts on the visual force page. I need a getter method. So let me just go ahead and define a getter method. Public list of account return accounts. Okay, so the getter method is ready. Now I need two action methods. If you look into this, currently I have not assigned any value to this variable, right? Currently it is null. It does not have any value. right? I'm going to create two action methods. On, once the action method is called, this variable should get the value. Okay, so I'll define page reference method. Okay. Okay. Now this is a method which is going to return a page reference. Like this method is going to return list of account. This method is going to return page reference. What is a page reference? Page reference is basically a data type which can hold a reference to a page. Got it? So a method which returns a page reference basically returns a particular page. Okay. So on call of this method, it's going to return a certain page. So if you want to move from page 1 to page 2, you can use a page reference method. Okay. Now, because this is not a getter method, so you don't need the get keyword here. You can just call your method whatever you want. Let me call it channel. Okay. Now, basically, for a page reference method, what you can do is you can just write a return statement needs to be written because it's a non-word method. There's a return type. What should it return? You can write page dot page name like vf12. Okay. If you write this, then when this method is called, it will take the end user to the page vf12. Okay. So that's how it works. Here you can give the reference of a page and this method can take you to that page. Got it? So if I write return page dot vf12, it will take me to page number vf12. Okay. What if I write return null here? What do you think it's going to do? If I say return page dot some page name, then it's going to take me to that page. If I say return null, then what do you think it's going to do? What do you think this method is going to do if I say return null? So return null is basically not returning any other page. Okay. Because you have not specified any address. What happens when you send a, send an email address and there is no email ID that you have specified? So when you try to send email and there is no email address that you have specified, what happens? Nothing happens, right? So that's the thing. But there is a small thing which it's gonna do. It's gonna reload the same page. Okay, it's not that nothing will happen. Same page will get reloaded because it tries to go to some other page. It does not find any location and it returns back to the same page. Okay, that's what I want to do. I just want to reload the same page. I don't want to go to other page. I want to stay on the same page. So I'll write return null. Okay, a return null is gonna bring me back on the same page. Okay. Now here there is one more thing that I have to write. Before I return, before I reload the page, I want to assign a value to this. That's what we need to do, right? We need to populate the value for this variable every time someone clicks on the button. So we will say accounts equals select name type industry from account where type equals customer okay. So what this method is going to do, it's going to basically return the same page, reload the same page, but before that reload, it's going to assign this value to the variable. That's what we were talking. Every time we click on the button, we want to change the value in the table, right? Now, every time you call this method, the value for this variable is going to get updated. By default, it's null. When you call this button, the value for accounts is going to become this. Same way, I can define one more method for this next button, page reference method direct. Here also it should return null. Before returning null, it should assign a value to this variable. Select name, type industry from count. Where type equals extension. No. This is customer channel and that's direct. Yep, it should be fine. So now what do I have? I have a getter method which should get the value of the variable on the page. That's what I have. That's one thing. Okay. Then I have got two action methods. One action method is gonna assign this value to the variable and reload the page, and this action method is also gonna assign this value and reload the page. Okay. Why are we doing a reload of the page? Because if you don't do the reload of the page, you cannot update the values in the variable. If the values in the variables need to be updated, then the page reload is required. So for that reason, we have taken the page reference method, right? So which is actually going to do the reload and refresh the page with the new values. That is it. So this method is a getter method. It will be called on the page block table component. These two methods are going to be called with the command buttons. So there is this command button option that we have seen. We can call the action methods on the command buttons or command links. So that should be fine. Let's go back to the Visualforce page. This code is saved. Let's go to the Visualforce page. Apex/. So controller equals C4. Now let me create a page block. To the title called dynamic list. Okay, so now let me just create the page block table. Value equals counts, var equals a apex column Okay, so page block table is there, but it doesn't show me any data. Why? Because initially accounts does not have any value. It's null, right? It does not have any value. So to get the value into this variable, we need to call these actions. So for the actions, I need the command button to be defined. So let me define the command buttons here. Apex command button value channel accounts action channel apex command button value direct accounts action. Right. Okay. There's an error. What is the error? Form tag is required because we are using command button, right? So let me just go ahead and define the form tag. Okay, so now this is what we have. We have got channel accounts, we have got direct accounts. Right, see this? So what is happening when I click on this? Initially when the page got loaded first time, it was blank, there was no value into it, right? Now what happens when you click on this? Okay, when you click on this button, this method is being called. This method assigns a value to this list and then loads the page. The same thing is being done by the other method also. You click on this, see this? You click on direct accounts, it shows direct accounts. I click on this, it shows channel accounts. Alright, simple stuff. Okay, now let me just go back. Okay, there's a small thing that I would want to do on this page. If you look at this part of the page, I'll click on the button, you just look at this part of the page. Okay, click on this. What do you notice? I'm going to click on the button, you just look at this part of the page. Okay, what do we notice there? What happens? Page gets loaded, right? The page is getting loaded. Okay, so actually what is happening is when I click on a button, the page is getting loaded. The entire page, full page is getting loaded. Now my requirement is not to reload the complete page. I have a requirement to reload only this section. Do you think I need to load the entire page? What we notice here, we can understand that the full page is getting loaded or reloaded. Okay, but don't you think these areas like sidebar is constant, right? Why do I need to reload the sidebar one more time? Header is also constant. Do you think this all area requires to be reloaded? No, but by default it is loading the entire page, which actually is affecting the performance of the page, right? So what is happening if the full page is getting reloaded, all the components or all the markups on the page, everything is getting reloaded. As a result, your page is becoming a little slower. performance wise it's not that good, right? This full page reload was not required. Only this much reload is required because this is the only area which is gonna get which is actually getting updated, right? So only if this section gets reloaded, my job should be done. Okay, and that's gonna make my page faster. All right, this concept is called Ajax concept. Okay, the partial refresh of the page. So whenever we, you must have seen, some websites you will see that even if there is a lot of content on the website, you find the websites faster. Some websites, even if they do not have content, but they are very slow, take very, too long to load and all. The concept is this only, whether on every time whenever you're moving from one page to other page, or whenever you click on something or a button or a link, is the complete web page getting reloaded, or they have managed it in such a way that only required portion gets reloaded. Okay, so that's the thing. So what we can do is, in Visual Force we have got the option to do a partial reload. Okay, instead of rendering the entire page, we can just render a small part of the page, and that's very simple to do this. What we need to do is go back to the code, this Visual Force code. Okay, identify the area or the section of the code that needs to be re-rendered. What section needs to be re-rendered? This page block table. If this is re-rendered, I think that should be fine. I don't need anything else. Okay, so you'll have to go and give a unique ID to the page block table which needs to be re-rendered. Give it a unique ID. ID is basically giving it a unique name. Okay, so there is an attribute called ID. It's available with all the components, and it's basically used for giving a unique name to the component. Okay, you can call it, now you can give it any name. Let me name it table1. Okay, table1, whatever you want, you can name it. Now in the command button there is an attribute called re-render. Okay, by default a command button re-renders the entire page, but if you specify what you want to re-render, only that section will get re-rendered. So I want to re-render table1. That's how simple it is. So I've given a unique name to this page block table, and here I say re-render table1. That's it. Re-render table1. That's it. Save it. Okay. What happened with re-render? Sorry. Re-render. Okay. Now let's click on this, and while I click on this, please notice here. Do you see? Full page is not, you will also notice the speed. It has become a lot more faster. If I click on this, you see the page is getting updated, or this part of the data is getting updated, quite fast. But apart from this, you want to notice, if you look at here, you will understand that the full page is not getting reloaded. Right, so anything which is not required to be re-rendered should not be re-rendered. Got it? So simple stuff. Okay, this similar thing can be done with the tabs also. Let me go back to the page. This is with a command button. For command button or a command link, you have to use this attribute re-render. Okay, so all that you need to do is identify the section that you want to re-render when on click of a button or a link, give it a unique name, and then use the re-render attribute. Okay, that's it. Similar thing can be done with the tab also. Previous example that we did, VF13, that was with a tab. So let me just go back to that. Now this example has got tabs. If I click on the tab, you would notice that the full page is getting reloaded. Is that required? Again, we don't need to reload the complete page. Why? Because most of the page is static, like the sidebars, the header part. All that I need to re-render is the tab section. All right. For tabs, it's even easier and more easier to implement this Ajax. For tab, there is attribute. There is an attribute in the tab panel component, which is called switch type. Here you don't have to do re-render and all. If you are using tabs, your tabs always appear inside a tab panel, right? So you just need to go to tab panel and there's an attribute called switch type. You just have to write Ajax here. Switch type equals Ajax. That's it. Okay. And save it. See. See this? Now it's not reloading the complete page. It's only reloading that particular section. Right. So this is how you can make sure that only small part of the page is getting re-rendered and not the entire page. Right. Okay. Fine. Now coming back to this example. In this example, what we have done, we have used two buttons, right? I click on the button and I just get to see the data which is associated with that particular button. Right. Now we are going to use a third type of method also, the setter method. We have used the getter method and action method. Right. Now we are going to use a third type of the method, which is a setter method. For setter method, what does it do? It basically is used for taking the inputs from the visual force page to the code. So for that, we are going to do a slightly different example. We are going to extend this example. I'll create a page. This page will have an input text box and it will have a search button. Okay, there's a button and this is an input text box. Now I want the end user to type in a value here, type in some keyword here and search for the records which meet the criteria. Okay, so the end user should have the option of entering a value here. Some text can be typed here and then the records matching that keyword should be searched and they should be displayed. Correct? So this is what we need. In this case, what we have to do, we have to take the value from here and we'll have to pass it on to the code. Right? In this case, what we have to do, we have to take the value from here, pass it on to the code. Okay? And then, perform a search on that and then display the data here on this page. So in this case, we will need all three types of methods. To display the data here, I need the getter method. To take the value from here, I need the setter method. And this command button needs an action method. So getter, setter, action method. All three methods will be used here. Alright, that's what we need to do. So let's go ahead and create the code for this. Let's develop the class first. So we need all three methods here, getter, setter and action. Okay. So go to setup, develop, Apex classes. public class C5, or whatever name you want to give. Okay, first is gonna be the keyword, the search keyword, which will be a string. So I'll define that, and then list of account. I'll call it search result. All right. So two variables. I need getter methods for both these variables. Let me define the getter methods. Public string get keyword, return keyword, then public list of account, get search result, okay. So we have got the keyword, getter methods for the keyword and search result both. Okay. Now we need an action method here, page reference method for the search button. So I'll just define public page reference do search. Okay, this says search result should be equal to select name, type, industry from account where let's say industry equals keyword. Okay, so this keyword value I need to get as an input, okay, through my setter method. Should return null. Okay, so all the methods are ready. The getter method and action method is ready, right? Setter method still needs to be defined. Okay, I'm talking about the value of keyword. I'm trying to do a query using the value of this variable keyword, but this variable value is to be taken through the setter method, right? So I'll have the text box. I should take the value from the text box, pass it on to the code. So for that we are going to define a setter method. A setter method is going to be a void method because it does not have to return anything. It's only going to pass the value from the page to the variable in the code. So public void is going to be a void method. A setter method has uses a set keyword, like a getter method uses a get keyword. So the same way, so call it set keyword. Okay, now this set keyword is going to take the value from the text box using a parameter, let's say s. Okay, so the value from the text box will be taken into this parameter, and then value from s will be passed on to this variable keyword. Okay, so you just have to say keyword equals s. That's it. Because it's a void method, I don't need a return statement here. Done. Okay. So rest everything is fine, pretty similar to the previous example. Only thing that I'm doing is I'm using a setter method here. Setter method is going to take the value from the text box into this parameter s, and then it is going to pass it on to my variable. That's how simple it is. Now let's go ahead and create the class. Create the Visual Force page. Class is ready. So we'll go ahead and say VF15. Okay. Now we'll need to create the markups as per requirement. Controller C5. Okay, what all markups we need? First of all, let me just create a page block to give a title. Title search accounts. Okay. So we need an input text box, we need a command button, and we need a page block table. 3 components we need, right? 3 things we need. An input text box, a command button, and a page block table to display the search results. So let's get started with input text. Okay, so there is this component called input text. Value will be keyword. Okay, command button value will be search now action. The page reference method do search. Do search. Okay, and then the search results. Apex page block table value equals search result where is a text column value a dot name type industry, and we need a form tag also. So let me just define that. Okay, right. So now this is gonna take the value and it's gonna pass it on to the code, and then that value will be searched and we'll get the search result. Okay, let's see. Let me type energy search. See, it returns you all the results where the industry is energy. Let's write education shows all the results where industries education. Got it? So now this is how it is working. So basically what we are doing, we are taking the value from here, we are taking the input from here. When I type in some value here and I click on search, the setter method is taking this value from here to the code, then this query is performed in the code in the class, okay, and finally it returns the updated value. The page gets reloaded and we get the updated value. Got it? So this is how simple it is. This is how a setter method would work. Alright, so this example has got all three methods. There is setter method being used with this. This one is using an action method, and this is using the getter method. Getter, setter, action method. Three of them. Right. Okay. So that's what we're going to discuss today. Now let me know if anyone has got a question or doubt here. Any queries, please let me know.